All right, welcome back to the channel. I'm here with my good friend and teammate, Cameron Saunders. And today we are going to be ranking every boss monster in Edison format that we feel follows under a certain criteria. So the way we're determining what a boss monster is defined as, these are the three rules. It cannot be summoned without a special condition or cost. It excludes monsters that are meant to just summon another monster, and it has to be relevant. Those are the three rules. So to just kind of like elaborate a little bit on those rules, what I mean by cannot be summoned without a special condition or cost, basically there are no monsters on this tier list that are like, a level 4 monster or something that you could just normal summon and that's it. And it also excludes things that are meant to just summon another monster. So malicious and quick draw, for example, they are monsters that are relevant and they cannot be summoned without a special condition or cost, but I would not consider those, monsters that are really considered like boss monsters because they're just meant to really summon another monster. Another thing that's kind of just meant to do something else is Armory Arm, so it's excluded as well. But just to try to keep it simple, that's what we were defining a boss monster as. So again, it cannot be summoned without a special condition or cost. It excludes monsters that are meant to just summon another monster. And probably one of the biggest criteria is relevant. Also, I just want to say that this is an arbitrary list because this is 53 cards right here. There are 53 monsters listed. I did not feel like adding literally every possible boss monster there could be. So if there's some weird shit missing, it's probably because it's not relevant or we just don't really care to rank it because I feel like most of the things that are actually in Edison games and tournament games are here within this 53 monster list. This is a huge amount of monsters. Honestly, it's probably the biggest boss monster tier list I've ever seen. So anyways, without further ado, Cam, do you have anything to say before we start?
Uh, no, just maybe our criteria for ranking.
Yeah, so you have a criteria for ranking, so I'll let you talk about that.
Yeah. So we're gonna kind of like evaluate and balance its ease of summoning, its impact on the game when you do summon it, and then like its power relative to the meta. So like even if it's obviously insane, if it's just not like actually getting used, then it's probably not going to be as high of a tier.
Yeah,
So
I agree with those three criteria. So that's basically all the ground rules, right? All right, so we could just start off with some of the easiest ones, right? Like this S tier, obviously, right?
yeah,
Like
Christia is just
Christia, we're talking about ease of summoning, impact on the game, power relative to the meta. Christia is by far one of the most powerful monsters in the entire format. In fact, I would say that most games kind of just end when this card touches the field. Like the game spirals downhill for the opposing person so quickly once Christia is summoned. And there's only a few other cards that are like that. I think the other one is this guy, right? Like
yeah,
this is the
Christia Dark
exact.
Arms are just very
Yeah, and I know some people debate about which one is more powerful than the other. I actually don't care to do that at all. Like this is interchangeable. You could put these any which way. It doesn't matter to me literally at all. Both of them are very problematic, very ridiculously overpowered. They both kind of end the game on the turn they're summoned. Whether the game actually ends that turn or not, the way they swing it is just so heavy-handed that like you might as well say the game is over anyway. So I don't really care where they are in S tier. They're both just S tier. And I think these are the two easiest to rank out of everything on the list. And everyone pretty much agrees within the format that these are the best two boss monsters in the entire format.
yeah. I would say Dark Arm probably deserves the number one spot just because it's more popular. Like more decks can play it.
Yes,
That would be like
I agree with that too. But I also decided before we even started, I was like, you know what? I'm not even going to get into the debate about which one is actually better and all
yeah.
that
Like just,
because it's just not necessary. They're both absolutely insane, and it's whatever.
they
I
both also hit you from two different angles. Like Christie is a floodgate, and Dark Arm just destroys everything. Like you can't even compare them on that basis. You just know that
Yeah,
like they hit the
yeah, I
field and the
agree.
game's done.
I agree. Dark Arm is very different in the way it wins the game than Christia, but they both just win the game. So
Yeah,
S tier for sure. Would you say Absolute Zero is also S tier?
I think yeah. So the thing about Absolute Zero is that like you can't ever just cleanly get rid of it without losing something.
Correct.
Unless they summon it into an empty boarding, like your prison, of course. But like the whole point of Absolute Zero is that it's punishing the opponent for like having played the game,
Yeah.
which is a really powerful thing, especially when it comes off of one spell card in your hand. It's
Yeah.
not like you send multiple cards to do it. Like it just
Yeah, he's always summoned off of one spell card, either Future Fusion or Miracle Fusion. And usually pretty free overall. It's also, we talk about this off camera a lot, but it is actually one of the best top decks in the entire format, Miracle Fusion as a
Yeah.
card, right? Like it is, if I were to do a video, and maybe this will be something that I will do, top 10 best cards to draw, off the top, off the top of your deck, literally. Like best top decking cards is Miracle Fusion might be number one, right? Like it's that high up. It is an absurd card to draw off the top. I've lost
Yeah,
games.
it's literally like Dark Arm with 3 darks in your grave, and then Miracle Fusion, and then there's
Yeah,
like a huge gap between how good anything
like
else is.
JD is also up there too.
Yeah,
And also speaking of JD, we might as well he's right. Like let's be real, JD's also absolutely ridiculous. Even though the deck that he's in isn't necessarily like if we're talking about just straight Lightsworn, JD isn't actually like JD's broken. But Lightsworn as a deck, I just don't care for that deck as much as I'm afraid of Christiasworn, the deck named after a
yeah.
monster, right? But JD, the card, we're talking about the card Judgment Dragon. It's really not that hard to summon, and it also has
I
a
mean,
really outrageous effect on the game.
yeah. You summon him, and like someone just loses. Either your opponent loses for board, or you get like Starlight Roaded, and then you
Yes,
lose.
yeah. There's
Like
no in
that's kind
between
of
either. It's just
yeah.
like it's very binary. It's either
And Lightsworn's not even a bad deck. It's not like it has low power
no, it's
relative to the
not.
meta. It's like
It's not bad at all, honestly. I've lost many games in Edison format to Lightsworn. In fact, I think that it's probably an underplayed deck. Like most people don't play Lightsworn. Um,
yeah,
I see Lightsworn in person a lot more than I see it on like online tournaments and stuff like that. You see a lot of Lightsworn, I would say, in person because people just love that it feels good to play, I think, in person too. Like milling feels good. Getting your wolves and all that, playing the spells, the solar recharges and the charges, and then summoning JD, ultimately seeing an ultimate JD. Because I think that's part of the dopamine rush too, is like this card ultimate rare just looks
yeah.
so good.
Like Lightsworn is very polarizing in person because on the one hand it looks really really good in max rarity and people love to max the deck out,
Yeah.
and on the other hand it's also really cheap because everything comes common, so you get like a large number of players who are opting to use it.
Yeah, and the feeling of milling cards in real life, like it feels good. It just actually feels good to mill the top 5 cards of your deck for Lumina off on the end phase.
Yeah.
But anyways, to get back on topic, yeah, I think all 4 of these are definitely S tier. I would say though, if we're being honest, right, like JD and Absolute Zero are probably a tier slightly below Dark Arm and Christia. Like if we're being honest, these two would probably be like S plus tier, but to not get all like nitpicky, they can all just go here. They're all ridiculous. They
Yeah.
all just kind of have their own reasons of why they're insane. Like Absolute Zero is technically tied to 3 spell cards, 4 if you want to be technical and include Future Fusion in that, which is relevant. But yeah, these are 4 easy S tiers that we can just get out the way from the very beginning and move on. What do you want to go to next? And we don't have to stay in S tier monsters, but we can just kind of pick something random. It doesn't matter.
I think we can probably just go left or right. I mean, it's
Okay. So Catastor, right? Like this card is extremely good. It is what I would consider a utility monster. So it is a boss monster because it follows the criteria of not being, you can't just normal summon a Catastor or anything like that. It's funny I say that because then you have decks like Black Wings that kind of just do, but
yeah,
you know what I mean. You can't just normal
yeah,
summon a Catastor, and it does have a really good effect when you're in certain matchups. So against Machina Control, against Lightsworn, it's very, very good, especially Machina Control.
it's the anti-boss boss.
Yes, it deals with a lot of them. Where I would put it though, I would say Catastor because it's a utility monster. I think that we should establish a tier for like utility monsters, and I
I
want to
like
say
B tier.
that's what I was thinking too. I was like, I don't think it's as high up as A, and I don't think it's as low as C, but I think utility boss monsters can just kind of be B tier. Like any boss monster that just has that kind of role, I would just consider it, this tier right
Yeah.
here. Okay,
Um,
so one of the ones that I think I said we weren't going to stay in S tier, but I can't stop staring at this card. I'm putting this up here.
yeah,
Brionic.
Bryonic is very.
It's just how many games come down to, oh, I'm just going to Brio for game. Like it's so ignorant, right? Like the card is just not a fair one. It is a not once per turn. You can target anybody's cards. You can dump all at once. You can dump them one at a time. It's easy to summon. It has decent stats. I'm not gonna say it's the best because 23 is lower than 24, which is like where things start to get really crazy. But Brionic is just overall ridiculous. Also, its attribute is really good, being water. because of Absolute Zero, and also just, water is just good typing in this format. So yeah, Brionic is absolutely insane. There's a lot you can do with it. Everyone has lost games to Brionic, and everyone has won games with Brionic. Everyone who's ever played Edison format, basically, right? Like, even if you're a dedicated
Yeah.
GB player, I bet that at some point in your life, you probably brain controlled or did something to a Brio that, like, won you the game because of it was there. And the card is just absolutely insane. It's just ridiculous. So
It's
that's,
the best synchro format, like
yeah.
by and far.
It
Just
doesn't,
it opens up the absolute most things that you can even ask a synchro monster to. Like,
yes, it actually, a lot of times to me, it seems like it is out of place in Edison format because of how broken its effect is. Like, Brio genuinely seems out of place sometimes. I'm just
it's
like,
just out of place in the whole game. Like in
yeah,
modern Yu-Gi-Oh, it would I mean, it literally does have a hard one's return in modern Yu-Gi-Oh. Like,
yeah, that's actually true.
and
It's, yeah. It
so
made a lot of like FTK strategies and stuff like that possible, or like really ridiculous OTKs, things that you
yeah,
can just loop, like premature burial and all that stuff. Like, you could just do a lot with Brio.
it's literally the type of card that it feels like Konami tried to not print for so long,
Yeah.
and then they were like, oh, maybe it's time, and then they realized that it was not time, and that it would never be time.
Yeah, they realized it would never be time. I think that's exactly a good way to put it too. It will never be a good time for Brionic to exist. The way it was originally printed, where it just has no restrictions whatsoever and generic. Everything about it is just not okay. So
It's also such an iconic look. Like you look at Brian Eck and it looks like danger.
it does. I think all of the ice barriers, they just look really cool, don't they? Like Trishula, I'm so sad that Trishula is not a part of Edison because it is such a cool looking synchro monster, especially if you have the DT or ulti. Like, it just looks
Yeah,
so good.
I'm a big
But
fan of Duloran. He's
yeah. Yeah, all of
like
them. Every ice
yeah,
barrier synchro, they just look nuts. I actually low key, not to get too off topic here, but I low key do want them to do those retrains of like the entire ice barrier strategy and just make it tier 0. Because one of the things I always had a gripe with when I was younger playing Yu-Gi-Oh was that the ice barrier synchros were used in every deck except ice barriers because ice barriers just fucking suck. And I found that to be kind of sad. The fact that every deck basically uses their synchros and none of their monsters, none of their spells or anything. Like, you never see
yeah.
anything. Maybe you
Well,
saw
I
a
mean,
mirror of the ice barrier once. It was like a tech choice that people would play. They're like, oh, if I catch you with the mirror of the ice barrier and the Necrol's mirror match, like, you just lose if you banish and I just activate this and now you lose the game. But that was literally the only card out of that entire deck that I remember seeing mainstream play a bit, and that's it.
yeah. Well, it kind of goes like in hand with the lore because like the whole point of the ice barriers are to lock these things away. Like they don't even want to use them. Like they want them to not exist.
That's interesting. Yeah, see, I didn't know all that. I
Yeah,
forgot that the whole was that hidden arsenal. That was like their
yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Uh,
All right. Anyway, let's move on. I want to rank Gores. I've been thinking about this a lot.
Gore's
There,
S tier, dude. Gore. Oh
Gores
my
is high.
god.
I'm gonna say A though. Here's what I agree that Gores is high. There have been wars fought over Gores, whether you should have attacked or not. There have been games that have been won because somebody attacked, and there have been games that have been lost because somebody attacked. Like, literally, Gores is by far one of the most polarizing things in Edison format. It is just crazy the effect that this card has on the game by just existing and not actually being there.
Yeah.
Just it
Our teammate
existing.
Raikoko in War League recently, he won a match 2-0 with Lightsworn because in game two his opponent attacked with Alias and had no Mirror Force or Prison, and the Gores just walked
Rolled
over
out
him.
for the entire game. Yeah. I remember looking in the Discord and I was like, oh my God, a Gorge literally just ran someone over. And I've done that before too. It doesn't happen as often now. I think people have gotten a lot better, but early days for sure, Gores can win you an entire game. I mean, it obviously can still happen, but it doesn't happen as much. But the card being a card at all, the fact that it exists, it literally can save you a ton of life points, give you extra turns, and that is really invaluable. Like, it is an
Yeah.
invaluable asset. I think it's one of the best cards to include in your deck. Just especially when you're talking about playing in tournaments, it just helps a lot to have swingy cards like Gores in your deck. They're comeback cards. You need those because Edison is a very inconsistent format. So you really want something like a Gores in your deck that if you're down and out, Gores is like, okay, well, I don't have much else going for myself, but here's Gores. Especially for me, when I play Frogs, a lot of times Swap Frog Sentryborn, Bellswap Frog to hand, pass, and your opponent has to immediately think of Gores, right? Because like even though that play is what you would have done no matter if you had Gores or not, like that's not anything special for the Frog player, but it just puts into your opponent's mind Gores from the gate. And there are games where I open with nothing and I just pass, and it also does the exact same thing. It's like no matter what, Gores is always going to be really, really good. So
the reason I said S tier is just because of how generic it is. It's more generic than every other card out there. Every deck can play it. No, not every deck should, but literally every deck can play Gores.
Theoretically, yes.
And so
I get it.
That's one of those like my snap reaction to put S tier is just the fact that like you're just never safe from Gores. Like you play against fairies and you know you're safe from Dark Arm. You're not safe from Christia, but you know you're safe from Dark Arm. You know, like, but you're definitely not safe from Gores in that deck. You're not safe from Gores versus Hero Beat versus Black Wings. Like you just
we had a play recently in the video where we were against heroes and we did a brain control in Absolute Zero, and the guy had nothing else on the field. So now, once we took his Absolute Zero, he technically could have dropped Gores, and we had someone commented and said you guys could have made Colossal Army Arm, and I think me and you commented and was like, oh yeah, that's actually true. We could have just went Colossal Army Arm, which we didn't see because we were probably talking too much at the time, but that is like Gores is the only reason why that other play is the correct play. Like it's literally because Gores exists, and I guess Trag to a degree, even though like heroes would not be playing that. But the fact that Gores exists is the reason why Colossal Army Arm was the cleaner way to win the game.
Right.
So, what I will say about Gores, and the only reason why he gets a slight demerit, and I would argue for A tier, is just because, and I've been trying to get this through people's head. Gores is like the only card in the format that you really decide like when it's going to drop. Like you decide when your opponent drops Gores. They cannot drop it without you. So that being said, it is one of those cards where it's extremely powerful, but a lot of games also come down to how well someone plays around Gores and just make it completely irrelevant in the game. And it's honestly not that hard to do, depending on, like, it's always going to be contingent on hand and stuff like that. But there are multiple, and life points matter a lot in that scenario too. But it basically, the point is that you can play around Gores. You cannot play around these cards in S tier at all. Like you just can't. Sure. You cannot play around Dark Arm, Christia, JD, Absolute Zero, Brianna. Like, what are you going to do?
You can play around like Dark Armed and Christia more than you can like try and say you can play around Judgment Dragon. Just because you have like Crow and stuff, but like but I mean Judgment Dragon, like Absolute Zero. What are you gonna do?
Even Dark Arm though, like Crow is one thing. Like I think there's a feature match.
I mean the Dark decks can just put the third Dark back in half the time.
Yes, and not only that, but you're also doing it because you don't even know if the Dark Arm's there, which is the funny part. Like I started Crowing Hydro Pump in a feature match, in a live feature match at the Big Boy Gaming 2K. I started DD Crowing his graveyard every time he got to 3 darks because I was afraid of Dark Arm. And then a couple turns later, he summons Card Trooper, mills 3, and Dark Arm leaves the top of his deck. And I was like, damn, that's crazy. I've been using Crows like a madman because I'm afraid of a card. And granted, I was Crowing Vayus. I crowed 2 Vayus. So it wasn't like I was
you weren't crowing like cards that you wouldn't crow anyway.
Correct. But the point was that as soon as he got to the 3rd dark, I was like, crow a Vayu again. All right, but yeah, Gores is insane. Now, Trag, because when we talk about Gores, we gotta talk about Trag, right?
Yeah, I think Trag's like B tier because like he's
not Gores. Let's be clear. He doesn't really solo.
Now sometimes Trag's better than Gores. Sometimes you drop the Trag, he's like 3,600. He just like
in decks like zombies.
I've seen Dragon Turbo Trags win the game.
Correct. In decks like zombies, in decks like Dragon Turbo, sometimes Diva Hero as well. Certain decks definitely can make Tragodia absolutely insane. We had a game also, to just reference our videos, there was a game that we played where I believe we were using a frog deck, and our opponent dropped a Tragodia that just absolutely derailed everything we had going on that game. We tried to like take it from him and do some cool stuff, and then things went really wrong. And like, I just remember Tragodia started soloing us at a point. And like you said, it can just be better than Gores because of how much easier it is to summon it. Like you can choose to summon Tragodia when you want. You don't need your opponent for that.
Yeah, you can crash into something, drop Tragodia.
Yes.
It's like
you can summon Goblin Zombie, crash, search, and drop Trag and all that stuff, and then like steal their monster. It's just a lot you can do. So Tragodia is very good, but it's more of a utility boss monster than it is like the power level that Gores is, where it just completely can swing a game in your favor. All right.
Yeah. Let's talk about Red Med. I think Red Med's solid A tier because it makes a whole deck. It makes 2 whole decks even. I think
Okay.
that's a good criteria for like an A tier boss. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, Gores is still A tier, but like making a deck, even like Christian makes a deck, but Christian also auto wins. Like
Yeah.
that's pretty
Christian
S
wins
tier.
on the turn that it's summoned. Yeah.
But like Red Med makes literally 2 whole decks in a format function.
I have to agree. I mean, Red Eyes Darkest Metal Dragon is definitely one of the best boss monsters in the format, hence it being an A tier. Its effect is not a hard once per turn, that's just not okay. I just can't. Every monster that's not a hard once per turn, so you could just summon multiple red meds and they can all activate their effect. Also, in general, monsters that every turn they can use their effect. So if you don't deal with the threat, it just recreates the problem or exasperates the problem over time, like it proliferates over time. Those monsters like this guy are insane. And I just realized that we forgot Fall Troll on this, even though I would argue that it's not exactly the most relevant because X-Sabers suck in Edison format, unfortunately. But like when I think about monsters that if they stay on the field, you lose the game, Red Med and Fall Troll come to my mind just because of the format directly after Edison format is basically a pseudo X-Saber format where it's just a broken ass deck that loops your hand away and all that stuff. So yeah, Red Med, insane. He's also huge. Absolutely ridiculous card. Uh did you have anything more to add to that or just
Yeah, what I was saying before was that he has a pretty unfortunate attack stat because of another fella on our list that I think is A tier, and that's Colossal Fighter.
all right, so we can move Colossal Fighter up there because I agree. I think Colossal Fighter fills a very good role, even though it's interesting. Colossal Fighter doesn't get summoned that much in Edison format, but when it does, it's very relevant on the game state. Like
Yeah,
it's
he's so versatile for
yes,
one
it's
thing.
very versatile. Walling off your opponent's aggression when they don't have anything that can out it, especially when we talk about against decks like Dragon Turbo. I think that's one of his main, like, where he's really strong in that matchup. Also, attacking into Gores, you don't really care when you have Colossal Fighter because nothing about dropping a Gores on a Colossal Fighter matters.
Exactly.
But
You can
yeah,
summon a token all you want, like Crash. Okay, I'll bring him back. It's like
yeah, and that 2800 attack stat though, because that's what we were kind of alluding to there, is that
yeah,
yeah, being a 28 is it's a huge attack stat, which is what I was saying right before the technical difficulty thing. It's a huge attack stat, but it's also conveniently horrible when we talk about Colossal Fighter because
yeah.
yeah.
I always tell people like Colossal Fighter is like the best card ever printed. Like if I were being completely biased, I would put this card at like the top of S tier because I just love Colossal Fighter that much.
Oh my god, not the top of
But
S.
like, I mean, Colossal Fighter, it's okay. It's pretty much an infinite wall. It clears entire boards on its own. It can be bigger than Red Dragon Archfiend. I mean, just the fact that it gains random attack points.
Yeah, it has been for a game sometimes too. Like I've seen people
Yeah,
be at 3300 and it's conveniently enough warriors in the grave to where Colossal Fighter specifically is game and nothing else would have killed at that moment.
yeah. And another thing is that like the 100 just seems like it's not a lot, but at these attack tiers, and this is something that I remember being hugely relevant in 2014 around that area of time, like where pretty much every relevant monster was 2800 attack. And if it wasn't 2800, it was 3000. And Colossal regularly just broke both of those.
Yes.
And it was like the literal first synchro monster ever printed kept being relevant for like 6-7 years just because the attack gain effect, even though it looks so small and incremental, once you get to those attack tiers, every 100 matters so much.
Yeah, that's actually very true. Colossal Fighter is a very, very, very good synchro monster. Uh, again, it doesn't come up that often because of how many things go on in Edison format as a whole. It's probably one of the most diverse formats. But when it does come up, it is extremely good. Now,
He's also almost impossible to stop under oppression. That's another crazy thing.
yeah, oppression and skill drain, they go really well with Colossal Fighter.
Yeah.
They're like a matchmate. I mean, skill drain and Colossal go way back. That's just like one
Oh
of
yeah.
I've beaten Lightsworn players a plenty with that specific setup. So yeah,
We did it in a video even.
did we really?
Yeah, we had a colossal skill drain versus a light sword player. He just scooped.
Oh yeah, I don't even remember, but I'll take your word for it. I mean, it sounds like something we would do. Sounds like something I would do for sure because I've done it. But okay, let's move on. I want to rank Caius. Is Caius
Okay.
S tier?
I don't think Kais is S tier for the reason that like even though it's pretty impactful when it does land,
Mhm.
but like, are you ever, unless your opponent's literally at 3,400, is Caius ever sealing the game?
Yes. The answer is yes. The answer is actually a resounding yes. Caius is fucking wild. Okay. How many decks get away with winning matches in like actual high stakes tournaments and everything because this guy literally breathes? Like Caius is played at 3 in way too many decks. It's absolutely insane what Caius does to the game. Like, oh, you have a set monster, out it. Oh, you have a synchro, doesn't matter, out it. You have any
I mean,
boss
he
monster
does stop
besides
every single
Titan,
synchro.
yeah, everything but Titania in the format and Turbo Warrior, if you want to be real technical, even though that card never fucking hits the field. But like, this guy ruins days. Caius, we used to say, because me and Stango, when we would do Mastering the People, we would play against a lot of random decks, and we play like reptiles or something. We'll play against reptiles, and in the middle of the game, our opponent would just tribute for fucking Caius, and we're like, bro, why don't you just play a real deck? Like, if you want to just play Caius and your reptile deck, like just play an actual real deck at that point. Because I understand Caius is basically the best monster in the format, but the fact that like you're playing it in every deck is insane to me. Like this guy
Yeah.
also. I say this all the time. If you get double Caius, you lose the game. Like if you get double Caius in a game, I promise you, just check your loss ratio on getting double Caius in a game, and just let me know like how many times you've lost a game where specifically Caius has been summoned twice, summoned and resolved twice. It is ridiculous the amount of times that you will lose a game because of this guy. He's insane.
True. I don't know. I mean, I don't really have anything else to say. Well, I mean, except for like maybe just the fact that Caius can go in so many decks means that just, and you're never sad about putting Caius in your deck. You're like, oh man, I'm playing a deck that has to play Caius.
Yeah, apparently the
Yeah,
reptiles don't care either. Like the fucking reptile people literally love Caius as well. I cannot believe the reptile people love him. It's crazy. Caius is absurd. So if we're gonna talk about Caius, then let's also bring up Ryza. So Ryza would have to be at least a tier below, right? Because it's not
mm,
it's not Caius level, but and only one deck really plays Ryza. If you want to be, it's just frogs. But I will say this: so many games are specifically won because of Ryza when it does
yeah.
drop.
What
Like,
Ryza has over Caius is specifically that his effect can be a pure win condition.
yes.
Like Caius, your opponent
Well,
will.
we can't say.
Will
I guess you can't say because like Caius can randomly also burn for 1,000
oh
per
yeah, yeah,
game.
yeah.
So they technically both have that, and I guess that Caius is just a little bit more rude because you don't even need your opponent around to do it. Like you can just lose the game because you're at 700, and your opponent's like they just
Yeah.
reveal Caius from their hand. But I get what you mean. Ryza can literally win you the game because your opponent just took a Ryza at a really, really bad time. Like I've spun a Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon to the top of someone's deck and cleared their field. And that's just get like you lose now because you draw Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon, you're going to lose the game.
Yeah, like it just puts all the dead cards back. It doesn't let them see a new card. Like it's not even the fact that it puts the dead cards back, because like if it put them in their hand, like
Yeah. It skips
that would
their draw
obviously not.
phase,
Yeah.
which no other card
So like,
does that. No other card time seals in the entire format, at least not that I know that's relevant.
well, Phoenix Wing.
Oh, okay. Well, Phoenix Wing is yeah, Phoenix. I can't say Phoenix Wing's not relevant, even though that card's definitely fallen from grace from where it was months ago. But like Phoenix Wing is relevant and it does have a very similar effect. But yes, spinning your opponent's card to the top of their deck, essentially skipping their draw phase at times, is extremely powerful. And I was telling you, I think we had this conversation off camera, but I was telling you about a time where I was losing, and my opponent specifically had a field of Catastor and Dark Armed, and I was losing obviously because he fucking has Catastor Dark Armed.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I either drew Soul Exchange or I drew Ryza. I don't remember which one I drew, but it doesn't matter. I Soul Exchanged the Catastor and summoned Ryza and spun the Dark Arm, and he had no darks because he popped as many cards as he could, and so he was just drawing a Dark Armed on the next turn while taking. He didn't take any damage because of the Soul Exchange, but then on the next turn, he's taking a guaranteed 24, and if I had anything else, he's taking that too. So, like, on the following turn after the Soul Exchange Ryza, I summoned, like, Junk Synchron, and it was just, yeah, you're just super cooked because you're drawing a dead Dark Arm. And not, like, if it was Soul Exchange Caius, sure, that would have been great too, but my opponent would have got to see another card, maybe got an out to it, but it was guaranteed once I did the Ryza. It was like, well, now you literally won't be able to, because he had no other cards. It was Catastrophe, Dark Arm, and nothing else. It was like, well, now you just.
I remember you saying
lose.
you were on like 600 life points.
I was very
like,
low.
dead to rights.
Yes, that's exactly. I was literally dead to rights, and I just reversaled the whole game. And I'm sure he was thinking to himself like, "Damn, I had such a ridiculous setup here with just these two ridiculous boss monsters." But I lost because Ryza made it where I couldn't even draw. Like I don't really know what he would have drew against a Soul Exchange Caius anyway. But
Brain,
he
maybe.
could have that would have killed me. That would have actually killed me. So there were outs, but once you do Ryza, they're like there are no outs. Uh but yeah, Ryza is great. Ryza also has weirdly good typing. Like it's a wing beast, which I remember
Yeah.
we were doing a video and you told me that we were playing as Black Wings and the guy Go Your
Yeah,
Guardian
he go in a
Ryza.
Ryza, you're like, okay, well, he can't Icarus us. I'm like,
Yeah,
yeah, he
you were
can.
like, yes, he can. I was like, oh no, not him being a wing beast. So that the fact that it's a wing beast is randomly relevant. It's a relevant thing. And we even talked about making a meme deck where we play like Ryza in I think it was Black Wings, right? Because you can tech or maybe it was Value Turbo.
It was value with Ryza and Icarus instead of Caius.
Yeah. So Ryza has some merit, maybe some unexplored territory can be done with. But yeah, the Ryza and Caius, they're just insane. Caius goes in
Ryza
way
is
too
also
many
just
decks.
Ryza is literally Caius against every synchro except Colossal. And I guess Red Dragon. Because the only thing is like you miss out on a burn, but like it answers them the exact same way. And Ryza is even better versus most synchros, especially versus like zombies, because then they can't return it. So like
Yeah, that's actually true. I was thinking like I don't like Ryza on certain things though. Like
I
I
don't like
don't
Ryza on Goyo specifically.
I yeah, that one and
I've lost because of it because I Ryza into Goyo and they summoned it a second time. But like against every other synchro, I don't care.
well
It's the same card.
this is the other one I was going to say specifically because you mentioned zombies. I do not like putting this card back.
Yeah, true.
But yes, I agree with your point. Is that a lot of times you want to spend things back. Like for example, I talk about this often as well. But against Value Turbo, right? One of the worst
Yeah.
places that you can put an Arm Wing or Armor Master that they summon off of Value is back into the extra deck, which is why Compulse is such a good card against that deck. Like Ryza is the same thing. There's no value to be gotten from it being in the extra deck. Like when you banish it with Caius, at the very least, they do all play Bird from a Different Dimension, right?
Yeah.
So they can actually just put it back with value and then get full value off of the one that you banish. But when you return it to the extra deck, there's
It's
nothing.
gone.
Yeah,
It's
same thing
just-
with Absolute Zero too. Like this guy, when he's specifically like in the graveyard, you put him in the graveyard or anything like that, he has value, you know, in the graveyard, obviously. But when you spin him back to the extra deck, it's like, well, it's kind of an annoying place for him to be because he doesn't count as a water monster there. He's not a hero or anything. Like he's just a random card in their 15 extra deck. So yeah, spinning things is just really, really good. It's a really good thing. All right. I wanted to do this guy to B tier. I think this is easy. He's a utility. He's definitely a utility monster if I ever saw one.
Oh yeah.
He's not. I hate summoning this monster. I always feel like it's going to be outed so easily. Maybe because every time someone summons it against me, I pretty much out it easily. But
Every time you pick between Thought Ruler and Stardust, if you pick the Thought Ruler, they're set bottomless. If
Yep.
you pick the Stardust, it's deep prison.
it is the entire format. I hate it so much. But there are times where this is the right choice because you need to gain life, or that one game that me and you played where we had a thought ruler and a magical android against a guy who we knew had like brain control or something like that. And
Yeah.
I forget, we might have trapped Dust Shoot and saw brain control, so we made these two. It was a frog mirror match. That's what it was. We were playing a frog mirror match, and we summoned these two and just won the game. We summoned this and android and won the game because they couldn't econ us, soul exchange us, or brain control us, and we were getting 1200 per turn, which was super relevant. And by the time he was able to out it, it was like, well, I've drawn so many cards, I have so many things built up that I can just come over the top and win. But Thought Ruler does have a purpose. It has a reason in the format. It's just so fragile at the same time in a weird way, where every time you have to summon it, you're always thinking like, man, this could just be Stardust, and it will probably be better. But you're sad if it's just, you know, deep prison.
Yeah.
And like you said, deep
Actually,
prison bottomless conundrum.
I lost a game playing Diva Hero earlier. It was like it's probably like a week ago because I actually cut Thought Ruler for Red Dragon in my extra, and so the guy has like two back row set, and I go and I forgot that I cut it, so I go to summon Thought Ruler because I'm like, oh, this guy got deep prison set,
Yeah.
and so I go to summon Thought Ruler, realize I don't have it. I'm like, well, okay, I guess I'll make Stardust and hope that it's bottomless or Mirror Force, and of course it was deep prison, so I lose.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, you know.
Just straight up deep. Yeah, I mean, it'd be like that sometimes. All right. We also have a tier here that I want to explore just a little bit just to get something popping in here. So I'm going to put two things in here for now. So these are things that are only when going for a game. There are certain boss monsters that you literally never see during the pace of a back and forth game, during the pace of a regular neutral game. Like
Yeah.
these cards don't get summoned in neutral. They just don't. They only get summoned in advantage state and when you're literally attacking your opponent for game that turn. So that's why they're kind of grouped into this tier.
I
What
may have
else?
seen Mistworm clear a synchro board once in my life and not also attack for game. Like
Mm,
that, like maybe once, but every other time I've seen it, it's just the last 2,500.
Yeah, I think we could probably put like Flamvar or Kuzius in here too. He's kind of in the same thing. Trident Dragon, Nitro Warrior. Like I've seen all of these. Well, I've seen this guy summoned just because someone has like dandy tokens or something.
Yeah,
But for the
I've
most
seen him
part,
gain 2 counters.
yeah. But for the most part, right, when you're summoning this guy, it's because your opponent's life points are low. They happen to have some tokens or something in defense mode. You're like, oh, I can, because it usually steals the game too. Is the ignorant thing.
Yeah,
But this is a steal
no
the
one plays
game.
it, so they're like, "Oh, I'm safe, I'm fine. I got defense position monsters."
Yes.
It was
So definitely that. Definitely one of those only when going for game guys. I'm trying to see if there's any other only when going for game monsters, but I think that's at least the ones I'm saying. Oh,
If
Junk Warrior is also a you don't just summon
Yeah,
Junk Warrior in
you
neutral.
never summon Junk Warrior unless you got lethal. Theoretically, if you play it right, maybe Lad, but I mean, you can summon Lad to real game states.
Yeah,
So I
you could
mean,
just summon Lad into like back, whatever you want and be like, all right, I'm summoning Lad. Where would you rank Red Dragon Archfiend? Is this a
I
utility?
would give him a solid B tier with the Thought Ruler.
Yeah,
Like, I mean,
like they're all in this utility category where when they're good, they're really good. And then when they're not,
honestly, my experience with Red Dragon lately have been like A tier level because I have not lost a game I summoned Red Dragon Archfiend in months ever since I added it to my deck.
okay.
And they keep coming up because people are so used to Red Dragon not being in people's extra decks because it's like the easiest cut because it never comes up. And so they make situations where it does come up because they think you don't have it, and now it just steals the game.
Yeah, I've lost
Which is
games too, specifically Red Dragon Archfiend when I was playing Frogs. I had the sub lock up. I was playing against 10-foot Dingaling, and literally because of Red Dragon Archfiend, it was the only way he could out my board. So this, I do have more respect for Red Dragon Archfiend, specifically when I'm playing with the Frog deck, because that is one of the decks where he's really, really good against it. Outside of that, I
I think
always
he's very
feel
good versus zombies. Zombies is one of the matchups where I am.
fair. That's also fair. I could see that. I don't have much experience with that specific scenario. And a lot of times when I want to summon this guy, I always look at Colossal Fighters like, why am I not just
Oh
summoning
yeah.
Colossal Fighter? But he does have a different and very respectable role. So I think it's a fair B.
Interestingly, my favorite thing about Red Dragon is that he can actually save you from losing the next turn by popping your low attack guys, and just being a big 3,000 guy on board.
Yeah,
And Colossal won't do that.
that's fair. Okay.
Like that's a utility that never gets spoken about because like it's so rare that like just having the one big guy is better than having all of your guys. But like versus in the Gladiator Beast matchup, like I'm like if I'm playing Quick Draw, I'm summoning Red Dragon to get rid of these fluff
That
tokens.
actually makes a lot of sense. Yeah, in that matchup. And that's the thing. So that goes back to my point about this whole tier really is that when they're good, they're really good. And when they're not, they stay in the extra deck.
Yeah.
Like they just literally stay in the extra deck until they're really good. Catastor is still the best out of these so far because the other thing about this guy is that we play so many games. We've done it to people. People have done it to us. This guy is a deck devastation virus target, and it is a 1-card deck devastation virus target at that.
Yeah, because you just go diva with it,
Yeah,
or jump depending.
yeah, and like that is a huge. Like, you can deck dev all of these, but this guy is a 1-card. Like I didn't really commit anything to this. I'm just summoning Deep Sea Diva or summoning Junk Synchron and making this guy, and then just like, all right, here's my deck devy, and you don't even have to shotgun it if depending on the matchup. You can just be like, I'm just gonna wait. But yeah, these guys are all these synchros anyway. They're really good. And when they're not, they just stay in the extra deck, which is the broken thing about extra decks in general. I want to put something in C tier because it's looking kind of empty. Gaia Knight, definitely I would consider like a C tier because
I'm not gonna lie to you. I didn't realize he was on this list when you sent me the list of pictures. I didn't even realize.
You're the one who told me to put it in there. Actually, you said Gaia. I think both of them, or maybe you were talking about.
I was talking about Elemental Hero
this,
Gaia and Dark Gaia.
Yes, so I would say that like this is also definitely like C tier.
Yeah,
this guy I've summoned it once to clear a Spirit Reaper, and it actually won me the game. But that was like 1 out of a actual 100 games. Not even kidding. Like
the last time I summoned Gaia is because I brain controlled a Machina Fortress.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like
that's
he
juicy.
never comes up. So
Yeah,
every once
but when he does, and yeah, Gaia Knight is just used in a zombie deck mostly. That's the only time I really see it. You play it in zombies is like because you use up your 6-star synchros a lot. And
Yeah.
the other 6 stars that you play, they actually have real utility. They actually do something. Whereas this guy's just 2600 attack, which is relevant, but he's also vanilla, and you just kind of throw him away, especially if you're climbing. Like I almost said link climbing, but if you're synchro climbing, you just summon Gaia to get to your Stardust, to get to your whatever else, and that's just kind of his role. But there are times where you need to OTK someone, and you're like, all right, well, it's going to be Gaia, Goyo, and whatever else.
Yeah, interestingly, because he's a warrior, he'll boost the colossal that you make with him just by 100. And then if you also have like Brio and Dark Armed, then that's 8,000 instead of 7,900.
Yeah, that's actually interesting to think about too. All right. Yeah, both of these are C tier for sure. As far as D tier, so I'm going to go on a bit of a rant right now. So here's my problem. We were playing Joshua Smith. We were playing Joshua Schmidt's deck that he got top 4 with at that tournament like 2 months ago. I guess it was in Germany. And it was in real life tournament. And he plays this hero quick draw combo deck, which the deck is actually really fun. We actually enjoyed playing with it. There was a lot to think about, a lot to do. And that's fine or whatever. Where I rank that deck is irrelevant. But as far as just fun and stuff like that, it's really fun. But what I noticed, because everyone knows that I shit on quick draw all the time. Every time I get a chance, I talk shit on quick draw synchron. And I'm not going to waste this opportunity by not doing the same thing here. So every game we played where we had an opportunity to summon Drill Warrior, it was either flat out the wrong play or it was the most fragile play, even if it was quote unquote the right play. I've noticed that no matter what the situation is, basically, if your opponent has a pulse, this is the most fragile monster to summon in the entire format. And I'm going to explain to you what I mean. So we were playing against a fairy guy, and we got to a point where the guy started asking us, like, is quick draw an effect? Does it start a chain? Like, does Drill Warrior banish for cost? Like, as far as discarding a card from your hand, he was asking, because I was like, activate the effect to banish. He was like, pay cost. And I was like, it's not a cost. And he was like, oh, I thought it was, So we got into this whole thing, but I realized, like, okay, this guy clearly has Herald of Orange Light. Me and you were both like, he clearly has Herald of Orange Light.
Yeah.
The correct thing to do, though, is to just wait for us to banish it. And then when it tries to come back, you can just activate Herald of Orange Light then, and we lose the Drill Warrior and the card we discarded, and we get nothing back. So it's fragile in that scenario. And when I'm playing with Black Wings, which is the deck that I play the most this format, when I play with Black Wings, I always play Double Oppression. And I will play against people with my locals.
Yeah, oppression's disgusting.
Oh my god, I play against people with my locals and I let them do the whole thing. I let them do the whole thing, Cam. I let them do the whole thing. I let them go quick draw, and they go discard, and they go dandelion, and they go synchro, and they get rid of their tokens. I let them go through the whole rigmarole because I'm cruel and unusual punishment type of guy. And they go discard a card, and I'm looking at how many cards they've given to this fucking Drill Warrior.
They do the quick draw, they do the dandy, they do the card in their hand.
Yes, they do all of this.
Then for no cards, you don't lose the oppression.
I don't lose anything. I just sit there and flip a card and pay 800 measly life points, and they just lost 3 cards. It's even worse when they use Volcanic Shell, because it's like, god damn, like you're
then
really
they lost
down.
For normal summon.
Yeah, like you're down bad. But Drill Warrior, so it's that. It's also on summon. Like there's a bunch of stuff that can happen to it on summon. There's Torrential, there's Bottomless, there's Wing Blast, there's Rageki Breaks. There's just so many things. There's Compulse. If you can never attack with it if there's a back row, God forbid, right? Because then it's just Deep Prison Miracle. You just add to the list. There's Book of Moon. Like you just add to the list. I realize every single form of interaction in the entire fucking format deals with this thing. It is so weird to me how fragile it is. And I don't know if in 2010
I don't
we just didn't
keep swearing by it.
No, it's crazy. This card is like, it is so bad because of what you have to do to summon it. It is so bad. You have to do so much.
What's insane?
What?
In that video that we recorded that was playing with Josh's deck, we only made Drill Warrior twice. One time we didn't even actually make it because we just threatened to make it and he torrentialed.
Yes.
And then the other time we made it, it was versus Fairy and he heralded. We summoned the one copy of Plasma for value.
Yes.
With which, let me paint the picture for viewers. Plasma requires a tribute of 3 of your monsters in order to be summoned to the field, and we resolved the summon and effect of Plasma more times.
Yes.
Than we resolved Drill Warrior.
I mean, it walked the game.
Deck designed to summon it.
Yes, it is actually wild to me how bad Drill Warrior is as a card, and I want to love it so bad because it is what I would consider a fun card to play with. In a perfect world,
Yeah, I love playing Quick Draw.
It feels good to summon it and to get back cards every turn and like discard Dandelion and get 2 tokens and wall up and all that. But unfortunately, modern Edison format just does not play that forgiving. It is actually a cruel format now. And Value Turbo existing, which is a deck that plays Oppression, Black Wings existing, which is a deck that plays Oppression, Hero Beat sometimes plays Oppression. Like, also,
and even if Hero Beat doesn't play Oppression, if they just chain Gemini Spark, you lose the game.
Yes.
So.
Also, like, I play Vanity's Fiend and Frogs. Like, I just play a Frog deck with Vanity's Fiend, and that's another card that just absolutely shits on Drill Warrior. Like, oh, the Drill Warrior is gone? I guess it's time to drop this Vanity's Fiend. You don't get anything back on your next day in my phase. It's just really, really awful. So I'm putting it all the way in D tier. It is so far the only thing sitting in D tier.
We missed a game shot when Avenging Night.
When did that happen?
I
mean, this is yeah. You mean like cards that are summoned for game? Yeah, I guess this is definitely that. I have seen this. You know what? You're right. I was gonna say I have seen this be summoned when it wasn't for game, but I'm lying because the reason why it was summoned was to summon Christia, and that just is game. Like the guy didn't die that turn, but he died that turn. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Okay, Titanial. So this is.
I think Titanial is B tier. She has a good impact. She has like things go good for Titanial when you put her on the field, and she's very easy to summon. You just summon Lone Fire, tribute it for its effect, and you get Titanial. But the problem with Titanial,
glued to your hand.
Yes, it's glued to your hand, and the deck that she has played in, all of them, unequivocally, are awful.
Drag them.
She's a great card in terrible, awful, disgusting decks.
Oh, how sad. Like Titanium, I love the card so much. Honestly, I do. Like, I swear I do. But yeah, it is a card that's only played in decks that are like lower on the tier list. They're definitely not. There are no S tier decks that play Titanium. Let's be clear.
No.
And yeah, I just don't feel like, despite the fact that it's easy to summon, despite the fact that it's 2800 attack, despite the fact that it has a really good effect, all of those things are taken into consideration. But when it's in your hand, it feels awful. It just does not feel good. And actually, you lose games a lot of times because of it. Like, specifically because you drew your Titanial. There are situations that my opponent will have me beat, right? They'll do something. They'll be like Pot of Avarice. They'll summon Lone Fire. And I'm like, fuck. Like, here's Titanial. And then they just summon Dandelion in defense mode. And I'm like, oh my God, thank you. Like, I won the game because you happen to have her in your hand. If you had her in your deck, I actually just was getting creamed. But because the card is glued to everyone's hands, it has to go in B tier. It just
actually, I'm B tier is like a kind of our utility tier. Is she not more C tier, honestly? Just for the fact that she's not even utility.
But like, it's utility tier, but it's also just things that are not as good as A tier, but things that are, I would say she's as bad as C tier. We might be able to reevaluate after we get everything, because that's another thing I wanted to say, is that once we establish everything on this, card, right? Once we get everything in this tier, then we can look at everything and be like, well, this doesn't make sense. If this is here, like, this also has to be here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So let's put her in the back pocket to revisit once we are done tiering everything. But I want to say, despite the fact that Titanium's glued to the head and all that stuff that we've ranted about, I do think genuinely that she is one of the best normal summons in the entire
format.
Well,
I mean, normal summon in 2800 that has an effect that negates pretty much everything in format, because everything targets.
Yeah.
And like, the problem, of course, is that like if you aren't running her in a dedicated plant deck and have the dandy tokens up, then like you lose her to do that.
Yeah.
But it's like,
she is a utility monster, though, when you think about it. Like
she is kind of
Yeah, it has that utility feeling to it. It's like, because when you summon Lone Fire Blossom, you can go into anything. And oftentimes it's like, well, I'm going into Titanium for this specific reason. Like, sometimes it's not correct to go into Titanium. Sometimes you're like, I have the Breed Dragon. I need to like set up this specific Dandelion play, what I'm going to do or whatever. And I'm going to, hold her in my deck, even though a lot of times that will make you a crazy person, because the first chance you get to get her out of your deck, you probably should. But
yeah,
I've seen the situation come up. All right, Ancient Fairy Dragon. This card is basically only played in like KFC and decks that play Debris, aka I would say like quick draw decks, and so quick draw KFC, and I guess Dragon Turbo. Does it have room for Ancient Fairy? Does it play that?
I don't.
So I'm thinking I don't have room C tier then.
I was gonna say B tier, because
utility. Okay.
I was gonna say it has utility because like sometimes you need that like 3K wall. I remember at the summit, the Edison summit that Keegan hosted back in July of last year.
Yeah.
My round one opponent was on Ancient Gears. And he had attacked me directly with a Gadgetron, and I dropped a Gorz and got the token. And he could not out that 3,000 token for quite a while. He finally did, and then I summoned Debris and some of the Dandy, and I made Ancient Fairy. And he was kind of new to Edison, and he said, "So what does that do?" And I said, "Nothing. It just has 3,000 defense." And he was very mad.
I remember this. Oh man.
So I think there's actually a lot of merit to that utility, plus what it can do in the KFC decks that are like dedicated to like using its effect.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty fair. Plus, it's a light monster, so I mean, if you play it in decks that have Honest, which is probably rare, but I mean, like you can do it.
So if that's the case, I feel the same way about this guy. If we're gonna say utility guys that are just like, you know, they're in these very specific decks, like Ancient Fairies in very specific decks. Most decks do not play Ancient Fairy Dragon. The same way most decks do not play Arcanite. But in the decks that they were played, then in KFC Dragon Turbo, whatever, Quick Draw, that type of stuff, Synchro Cat, these cards are genuinely good in the decks that they're played in. And yeah, Arcanite, I like this card a lot. This card reminds me of Cat format 2009. Well, I should specifically call it Dark Strike Fighter format, because that's what it really was. It was really Dark Strike format. But Arcanite was featured in that format. That was its premiere. And that's when they switched everything from being level 8 synchros to level 7 synchros. And Arcanite was definitely one of the beastly ones because of Spy and Airbellum and all that stuff. So it's a really good card when it's summoned, especially under things like Cold Wave and all that.
It just goes instantly +2, and like you can, it's modal. Like you can pop things. You can Dark Armed with it, but you can also just sit on a 2,400 attack monster. It's actually it's like an Arcanite with 2 tokens, 2 counters is just like a a Black Rose without wasting your Black Rose.
Yeah, we summoned it against the Glad Beast player, and I remember the guy put his Darius in the graveyard. When we were adding the tokens, and you were like, no, don't remove a token to pop it, because we want the Arcanite to be 2,400 attack against Glad Beast. And I was like, oh, I wasn't removing the tokens. I was putting them on there. He just put the Darius in the graveyard, assuming that we were popping, but like, no. We're actually keeping this Arcanite at 2,400. And it also threatens that if you ever set a back row, we'll just pop it. So Arcanite is very good, very unique effect, and it also randomly gets under Bottomless Trap Hole. It's like the only
it's a 2,400 that your opponent can't actually do anything about.
Yes, that is probably one of the most unique things about it. It is the only synchro in the format basically that gets under Bottomless Trap Hole in a way that like Stardust, it gets around it, but that turn of Stardust isn't there anymore. Arcanite is still there on the field, establishes a card for the whole duration of the turn, and it will pop things, probably the Bottomless Trap Hole. So yeah, Arcanite is really nice. Okay, this guy's also utility, but where do you want to put Dark End Dragon? Because nothing is
I feel like Dark End's utility puts him in A tier, because just like Colossal, his utility is so high in so many game states, and he outs everything.
So I actually agree with that, specifically because when I even started talking about Dark End, I was like, nothing does what this card does. This card is basically Scrap Dragon before Scrap Dragon. Obviously, it's not as powerful as Scrap Dragon, but in Edison format, we don't have monsters that you can summon from the extra deck that just blatantly clear things from the field for nothing. Like Brionic, even Brionic has the pitch. Yes, it's the only thing in the format that is quite like it. At least, I don't know what the weird decks have, right? Like, I don't know if there's something in a Reptile or like...
The Insect deck has Relinquished Spider, which is actually really cool because it's relinquished, and it's also Armidy's Keeper Boundary. We should have had that in the tier list, but it's not relevant. So we can't have it in this tier list because it's not relevant. But if we ever did a tier list where we have like everything, that card's like, if Insects were good, Relinquished Spider would be S tier. Like I almost lost that card one time.
Yeah, see, like a jank boss monster tier, because Fall Troll could be in that for sure. He can get his redemption in that arc. All right, Ancient Gear Gajillatron Dragon. I've been staring at this. You were the one who told me to add this to the list to begin with.
Yeah,
I don't really know where to put
I think he's a very fairly strong ball. I think he's at least C. I mean, like, I respect Gadgetron Dragon. Like if I don't have a bottomless when the Gadgetron drops, I'm like, oh no, like because if I'm sitting there like looking at a deep prison, I'm just like, okay.
Yeah, I mean it's true. He's not what you would call utility by any stretch, but it is.
No, he's just a deck. He's his own deck.
Yeah, all of these are kind of like beaters in a way too. I'm noticing like they're kind of just like guys that are just big, and they're played because of their stats and their effects to do damage. They just do damage. They're just damage
Yeah.
guys. Gajiltron Dragon is very good at doing damage. It will probably be higher than like all of these other ones. But yeah, this guy is like, he's pretty good. And I know a lot of Mausoleum and weird decks that play Gear Town and stuff like that. Like they use this guy, and he is like when you said, if you don't have a bottomless when he's summoned, dear God, things are about to get dark.
Yeah, and your opponent can also play around with bottomless by doing something like attack with another Gadgetron that they already have, and then like MST their Gear Town. You can't bottomless because you're in the attack decoration of the other Gadgetron.
Yeah. All right.
Very interesting things that I've seen come out of the KFC type of decks, like killing your opponent from nothing because of that.
So I'm dropping Light and Darkness Dragon into D tier.